Support WrestleTalk!
Visit WrestleTalk.com.
WWE made a big deal out of their first ever historic Women's Royal Rumble match. You have to say that as much as possible to hammer home the point, which had been announced by Stephanie McMahon in December last year in what was reportedly a shoot reveal. Every episode of Raw, SmackDown, NXT, Mixed Match Challenge, and all that came in between after that made sure to remind you, the audience, that this was indeed a historic match. Stephanie's comments about the women stepping up once again were played ad infinitum. Her screeched, "But that's not enough!" burned into the ears of everyone who turned on the WWE product, and these statements were pushed further when it was announced that the Women's Royal Rumble would have the same rules as the men's match. Removing the champions Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair, WWE had a total of 19 female wrestlers on the main roster, including the newly promoted Mandy Rose, Sonya Deville, Ruby Riott, Sarah Logan, and Liv Morgan from NXT. But with the news of Paige suffering a reportedly career-ending injury, this meant that the Women's Royal Rumble would have a whopping 12 spots for nostalgic return, surprise entrance, and NXT call-up. That number became 13 when it was revealed that Alicia Fox had suffered an injury during rehearsals for the match. That's nearly half of the Royal Rumble. Compare that to the Men's Rumble, which had 4. And surprises they were. WWE brought back former women's champions like Lita, Trish Stratus, Molly Holly, and Jacqueline, as well as stars from the Divas era like Beth Phoenix, Kelly Kelly, the Bella Twins, and Michelle McCool. Even former Raw general manager Vicky Guerrero got a spot in the first ever Women's Royal Rumble. Some looked great, some not too bad, and some who reminded us of just how bad women's wrestling used to be. There were 2 NXT entrants, Mae Young Classic winner Kairi Sane and NXT Women's Champion Ember Moon, both of which had good showings, with Sane showing off her incredible elbow drop to the Philadelphia crowd, and Moon having a showdown with bitter rival and eventual winner Asuka. Having said that, it was odd to hear Michael Cole refer to Kairi Sane not as the Pirate Princess, but as a yacht persona. So what about the rest of the entrants? You know, the actual main roster talent. Well, Sasha Banks got the Iron Woman role, lasting nearly an hour in the match. Becky Lynch had a strong showing. Nia Jax nearly got the record for most eliminations, and Asuka won the match, earning herself a championship opportunity at WrestleMania. But most of the entrants in the Royal Rumble were non-factors. Sarah Logan didn't do anything of note. Sonya Deville didn't do anything of note. Ruby Riott didn't do anything of note. The match was built around Banks, Asuka, and the nostalgia entrance, which is perhaps the biggest criticism one could hurl at this historic match. While it was very good, though not on par with the Men's Royal Rumble that came earlier in the night, it felt more like a celebration of women's wrestling rather than a sporting contest to crown a new #1 contender for the biggest show of the year. This could have taken place on Nostalgia Fest Raw 25 and felt right at home. The nostalgia entrance got the biggest reactions, particularly Trish Stratus and Lita, which overshadowed the main roster women wrestlers who are there all the time. This was further hammered home when the final 3 was 66.6% nostalgia. If you look back on previous Royal Rumble matches, could you imagine any of the nostalgia spots making it into the final 4, let alone being the runner-up? Even last year's Royal Rumble match, which had a plethora of nostalgia and part-time entrants like The Undertaker, Brock Lesnar, and Goldberg, put the spotlight on Randy Orton, Bray Wyatt, and Roman Reigns. Nostalgia spots in Royal Rumbles are fun and certainly have their place, but the match should be focused on the current crop of stars, the people who are going to be there day in and day out for the years to come. The easiest way around this is for WWE to spend the rest of 2018 building up their women's roster. Many fans ask why there aren't women's tag team championships, and this Royal Rumble is a useful tool at explaining why. There isn't enough depth on either brand, and they would just end up as props for people to fight over rather than have any weight or clout. I mean, just look at what happened when TNA tried to launch their women's tag team division. However, if we come to January next year and the women's roster across both brands has 30 or maybe even 35 active female wrestlers, then the Royal Rumble will have a chance to shine a light squarely on the talent you want to be pushing for the rest of the year, and only have a handful of surprise entrants. It also means you don't have to put in deadweight like Lana and Dana Brooke in the match, who the company have no intention of pushing as in-ring talent. Looking back on the match, it also seems surprising that WWE didn't have one of their main roster performers eliminate the most entrants. While it seems like an obvious choice to give that to Nia Jax, who could have used it to further develop her character for the rest of the year, former Divas champion Michelle McCool eliminated the most people with 5. No storylines were built out of the match either, so there's no new feuds that can culminate at WrestleMania or Fastlane. The reports since the Rumble have said that with the debut of Ronda Rousey, WWE want to push the women's division harder than it has before. If that's the case, they're going to need to start having multiple storylines and angles so the women's matches aren't looked at like special attractions. The idea of having 2 Royal Rumble matches on one show didn't didn't end up being the anchor that people expected it to be. The crowd was silent for Jason Jordan and Seth Rollins versus The Bar and the triple threat for the Universal Championship, but they came alive again for the second Rumble match of the night. But a shallow pool of talent to choose from and far too much focus on nostalgic stars meant the first ever Women's Royal Rumble was akin to the gimmick Battle Royal from WrestleMania X7. Though that comparison is extreme and perhaps unfair, it's food for thought when WWE hold the historic second ever Royal Rumble next year. What do you think? Let us know below, because after all, this is just my opinion. We make a lot of great videos here at WrestleTalk, so click the videos on screen right now for more awesome wrestling content.